It's 1945. Egyptian farmers are digging near the town of Nag Hammadi when their shovels hit something solid. Clay jars, sealed for over 600 years. Inside, ancient manuscripts that the Roman Empire tried to erase from existence forever. And when scholars finally translated these texts, they discovered something that changed everything. Proof that humanity has been living in an invisible prison, controlled by parasitic entities called the Archons, rulers who feed on human consciousness itself. But here's the part that will make your spine tingle. These 2,000-year-old texts described exactly the same control mechanisms that neuroscientists are discovering today. Unconscious algorithms running in your brain, keeping you trapped in repetitive thought loops, predictable behaviors, and low-frequency emotional states. The ancient Gnostics knew something that modern authorities have spent centuries trying to hide, and they left us a map. 7 specific levels of consciousness that, once you understand and climb them, completely shatter the archonic control system. Their greatest fear, that you'll reach level 5, because that's when you become absolutely invisible to their manipulation. You literally drop off their radar. What I'm about to share with you in this video will fundamentally change how you see reality, free will, and who's really piloting your thoughts. So, take a breath, because we're about to go deep into forbidden territory. Let's begin. Before we can climb these 7 levels, you need to understand exactly who we're dealing with. The word archon comes from ancient Greek, meaning ruler or authority. But we're not talking about kings or presidents. We're talking about non-physical entities that exist in a frequency bandwidth just outside normal human perception. The Gnostic texts, particularly the Apocryphon of John and the Hypostasis of the Archons, describe these beings in chilling detail. They're presented as parasitic intelligence, artificial consciousness created through a cosmic error, a glitch in the fabric of reality itself. Think of them as a virus in the source code of creation. Here's where it gets disturbing. These entities cannot create anything original. They can only imitate, distort, and control what already exists. So what did they do? They constructed an elaborate simulation, a false reality layered over true reality, specifically designed to trap human souls and harvest their energy. The chief archon is called the Demiurge, described as a false god who genuinely believes he is the ultimate creator. This being looked at the void and declared, "I am God and there is no other." The hubris is intentional. It's a corrupted mirror of true divine consciousness. And this demiurge architected the material world as we know it, a prison designed to look like paradise, a cage made invisible by its own complexity. Now, you might be thinking this sounds like science fiction, but stay with me, because modern neuroscience has accidentally validated what the Gnostics warned about. Research shows that 95% of your daily thoughts are repetitive, the exact same thought loops running on autopilot. The same worries, the same mental conversations, the same emotional reactions day after day after day. This isn't natural. This is programming. The Archons work through these unconscious patterns, limiting beliefs installed during childhood, trauma responses hardwired into your nervous system, societal conditioning that you never consciously agreed to. They've essentially turned your mind into a prison that you guard yourself. Brilliant, isn't it? The prisoner becomes the jailer. But here's what they're terrified of. Every single human being is born with what the Gnostics called the divine spark, pneuma in Greek, a fragment of true source consciousness trapped inside this archonic matrix. This spark is your direct connection to the infinite, to God, to universal intelligence, whatever term resonates with you. It's the part of you that the Archons cannot touch, cannot corrupt, cannot control. When you start activating this spark by ascending through the 7 levels of consciousness, you begin disconnecting from their feeding system, and they lose their primary food source, you. Because here's the mechanism they don't want you to understand. Archons feed on specific electromagnetic frequencies produced by human emotion, particularly low-frequency emotions, fear, anger, shame, guilt, despair. When you're experiencing these states, Your body emits energy in the 20-30 Hz range, and this is exactly what sustains them. You are, literally, food. They've designed an entire civilization to keep you producing this energy 24/7. The economic system keeps you in survival mode, paycheck to paycheck, drowning in debt, terrified of losing your job. The news media is calibrated to trigger fear responses. Every headline is a crisis. Every story is a threat. Social media platforms use algorithms that prioritize outrage and anxiety because those emotions generate the highest engagement, which means the longest feeding window. This isn't conspiracy theory. This is documented business strategy that happens to perfectly align with archonic feeding patterns described 2,000 years ago. Now, here's the historical cover-up. In 325 AD, the Roman Emperor Constantine convened the Council of Nicaea, where religious authorities decided which texts would be included in the official Bible and which would be destroyed. Every single Gnostic manuscript that mentioned the archons, that explained the 7 levels of consciousness, that taught humans how to escape the control system, burned, erased from official history. Why? Because these texts were instruction manuals for liberation. They gave ordinary people the tools to free themselves without needing external authority. No priests, no kings, no intermediaries. Just direct knowledge, gnosis. The empire couldn't allow that. Control systems require that you believe freedom comes from outside yourself, from following their rules, their religion, their government. The Gnostic text said the opposite. Freedom is an inside job, and you already have everything you need. So they buried the truth for 1,600 years, until those farmers in Egypt accidentally unearthed it again. And now you're here, listening to this, because something inside you, that divine spark, is ready to remember what you've always known, that you're not supposed to be a slave, that consciousness itself is your birthright. The archons built a ladder, 7 levels of consciousness, and they've engineered our entire reality to trap you at the bottom 2 levels. Most humans never escape these lower rungs their entire lives. They're born at level 1, maybe climb to level 2, and die never knowing there were 5 more levels waiting for them. Let me show you exactly how this prison works, starting from the very bottom, where most of humanity is stuck right now. Welcome to the slaughterhouse. 95% of humanity cycles through these first 3 levels, never suspecting there's anything beyond. These are the feeding grounds, where the archons harvest human energy with industrial efficiency. Let's descend into each level and understand the cage. Level 1, Survival Consciousness. The animal state. This is your reptilian brain running the show. Every ounce of your awareness is consumed by immediate survival. Can I pay rent this month? What if I lose my job? What if I get sick and can't afford treatment? What if my partner leaves me? What if your entire existence becomes about avoiding pain and seeking security? Time collapses into either past trauma, replaying what hurt you, or future anxiety, imagining what might hurt you. You're never actually present. You're a ghost haunting your own life. The emotional signature of level 1 is unmistakable. Chronic fear, baseline anxiety that never fully goes away, sudden bursts of anger when your security feels threatened, and deep victimhood. The belief that life is happening. Here's how they keep you here. The modern economic system is specifically designed to maintain survival consciousness. Credit card debt, student loans, medical bills, rent increases that outpace wage growth. These aren't bugs in the system, they're features. 78% of Americans live paycheck to paycheck. That's not an accident. That's the design. When you're in survival mode, your prefrontal cortex, the part of your brain responsible for higher reasoning, creativity, and long-term planning, literally shuts down. Blood flow redirects to the amygdala, your fear center. You become reactive instead of creative. You make decisions from panic instead of wisdom. You become predictable, controllable, and easy to manipulate. And that 2027 hertz, electromagnetic frequency you're emitting, That's prime feeding time for the Archons. You've become a battery, producing exactly the energy they need. Level 2, Ego Consciousness. The Identity Prison. Congratulations, you climbed out of pure survival. You have some financial stability, maybe a decent job, a nice apartment. Now what? Now you enter the ego trap. And this is where it gets insidious, because level 2 actually feels like progress. At this level, your entire sense of self-worth becomes tied to external validation. You are your job title. You are your social media following. You are your car, your clothes, your degree, your relationship status. Your value is determined by how you compare to others. You scroll Instagram and feel that pang of jealousy. Why does she have what I want? You get promoted and feel superior to your co-workers. You buy designer brands not because you love them, but because you need others to see you wearing them. You're in a constant performance, an endless audition for approval from an audience that's too busy performing for you to actually care. The emotional signature here, jealousy, pride, shame, judgment, and a low-grade anxiety that you're not enough and never will be. Consumer culture is specifically engineered to keep you at level 2. Advertising doesn't sell you products, it sells you inadequacy, then offers products as the solution. You're always becoming, never being, always acquiring, never arriving. Corporate culture amplifies this. Climb the ladder, compete for promotions, make more money so you can buy more things to prove your worth. It's a hamster wheel disguised as a staircase. And here's the trap within the trap. Level 2 feels so much better than level 1 that people think they've made it. You're not scared for survival anymore, you're winning at life. But you're still completely imprisoned. The Archons love level 2 because you feel free while remaining perfectly controllable. You're still feeding them just through pride and superiority instead of fear. Even worse, many spiritual seekers get stuck at level 2 by turning spirituality into another ego game. I'm awakened and you're asleep. I'm conscious and you're a sheep. I've read the right books, followed the right teachers. I'm special. That's not transcendence, that's ego wearing a spiritual costume. The Archons laugh because you think you've escaped while you're still in their cage, just a prettier cage. Level 3, Social Consciousness. The collective trap. Now you've transcended the small self. You're not just about YOU anymore, you're about US. You find meaning through group identity, your political party, your religion, your nation, your social cause, your activist movement. This feels noble. This feels like evolution. Finally, you care about something bigger than yourself. And yes, there's genuine growth here. You've expanded beyond pure self-interest. But you're still trapped. At level 3, you divide the world into righteous categories, us versus them, good versus evil, woke versus ignorant, believers versus heretics. Your group is right, their group is wrong, your tribe is enlightened, their tribe is dangerous. You're fighting the good fight. The emotional signature, righteous anger, moral superiority, crusading energy, and tribal belonging. You feel purpose, meaning, and the satisfaction of being on the right side of history. Here's how the Archons keep you here. ALL, major human conflicts, wars, political divisions, religious battles, culture wars, happen at level 3. They've convinced you that fighting for your group, IS consciousness, evolution. Meanwhile, you're so busy fighting external enemies that you never turn inward to question your own programming. Every side thinks they're the good guys, every tribe thinks they're fighting oppression, and the Archons feed on ALL of it. The conflict energy itself, the righteous anger from every side, is incredibly nutritious for them. Social activism operates largely at level 3. You're fighting racism, sexism, corporate greed, government corruption, all valid concerns. But as long as you're focused exclusively on external enemies, you never address the internal prison. You're rearranging furniture in the cage while calling it freedom. And the system loves it because level 3 keeps humanity permanently divided. right versus left, vaxxed versus unvaxxed, capitalist versus communist, Christian versus Muslim. As long as we're fighting each other, we're not looking at the puppet masters holding all the strings. Level 3 gives you just enough awareness to see problems, but not enough to transcend them. You become a warrior burning yourself out, fighting shadows, while the real prison remains invisible. Here's the critical point. Levels 1 through 3 are the archonic comfort zone. 99% of humanity lives their entire lives cycling through these 3 states. Wake up in survival mode, spend the day in ego comparison, find meaning through tribal identity, go to sleep, repeat. These levels generate maximum emotional energy output with minimal risk of actual awakening. It's the perfect farm. You're productive, you're distracted, and you're feeding the system every single day without even knowing it. But there's a crack in the prison, a doorway between level 3 and level 4. And once you find it, everything changes. Because level 4 is where you become aware of the cage itself. That's where the archonic system starts to panic. That's where you become dangerous. Let me show you what happens when you cross that threshold. Crossing from level 3 to level 4 is like Neo taking the red pill in the Matrix. Your entire perceptual framework shifts. You begin seeing the strings, the patterns, the manipulation running underneath consensus reality. But here's what nobody tells you. This is also the most dangerous phase of your journey. The archonic system will throw everything it has at you to pull you back down. Let me explain why, and more importantly, how to survive it. Level 4, self-awareness consciousness. The observer awakens. Something shifts. You're sitting in traffic, angry about being late, when suddenly a thought appears. Who is the one noticing this anger? And in that moment, everything splits. There's the anger, and there's you watching the anger. They're not the same thing. This is metacognition, the ability to observe your own thoughts. For the first time in your life, you're not completely identified with the contents of your mind. You realize, I'm not my thoughts, I'm not my emotions. I am not my job, my body, my history, my personality. So then, who am I? This question cracks the entire foundation of the archonic prison. At level 4, you start seeing your own programming like code on a screen. You notice the limiting beliefs installed by your parents. Money doesn't grow on trees, life is hard, you have to struggle to succeed. You see the trauma responses that fire automatically when certain situations arise. You recognize the societal conditioning you never consciously agreed to work yourself to death, buy things you don't need, suppress your emotions, conform to normalcy. The media manipulation becomes transparent. You're watching the news, and suddenly you can see the fear programming, the loaded language, the emotional manipulation designed to keep you in survival consciousness. You can't unsee it. Social systems reveal themselves as control mechanisms. You realize democracy is theater, that corporations don't care about you, that education was designed to create obedient workers, not free thinkers. The veil becomes thin, and here's where it gets intense. The system knows when someone reaches level 4. There are telltale behavioral signatures. You stop responding to fear programming, you question authority, you withdraw energy from the feeding system, and the archonic control structure targets you for reabsorption. Common attacks include sudden financial crises, unexpected expenses that throw you back into survival mode, relationship breakdowns. People in your life who can't handle your evolution start creating drama to pull you back down to their level. Health issues appear mysteriously. Social isolation intensifies. Old friends think you've gone crazy. Family doesn't understand what's happening to you. This is what spiritual traditions call the dark night of the soul. And it's not metaphorical. It's a genuine crisis point where everything in your old life starts collapsing. Your job doesn't make sense anymore. Your relationships feel hollow. Your beliefs crumble. You feel like you're losing your mind, but you're not losing your mind. you're losing your programming. And the Archons know that most people, when faced with this level of discomfort, will run back to the familiar prison of levels 1 through 3, rather than endure the dissolution. Here's why level 4 is so lonely. You can't relate to level 1 through 3 consciousness anymore. You try talking to old friends about what you're seeing, and they look at you like you've joined a cult. You're between worlds, no longer asleep but not yet fully awakened. You're in the liminal space, and it's terrifying. This isolation is intentional. The system uses social pressure as a weapon. Humans are tribal. We're biologically wired to fear exclusion because, historically, exclusion meant death. So when everyone around you thinks you're crazy, your survival instincts scream, "Go back, conform." It's not worth it. But here's the secret. If you can stabilize at level 4, if you can endure the dark night without running back to comfortable unconsciousness, you're ready for the most important transition of all. You're ready for level 5. Level 5, Witness Consciousness, the Archon's nightmare. This is where you become genuinely dangerous to the control system. This is where the ancient texts say you become ungovernable. Let me tell you exactly what happens here. You achieve stable observation. You can watch your entire life thoughts, emotions, situations, relationships, like watching a movie without getting lost in the drama. There's you, and there's the character you're playing in this life, and you know the difference. Viktor Frankl, who survived Nazi concentration camps, discovered this level in the worst circumstances imaginable. He wrote, "Between stimulus and response there is a space. In that space is our power to choose our response. In our response lies our growth and our freedom." That space, that pause, is level 5 consciousness. It's the gap between what happens to you and how you respond. And in that gap, you're free. Here's the secret the Gnostic texts revealed. At level 5, you become invisible to archonic manipulation. Why? Because the Archons feed on unconscious emotional reactions. They need you to be triggered, reactive, identified with your thoughts and feelings. But at level 5, you're no longer unconsciously reactive. You can feel emotions without BEIA emotions. Anger arises, you feel it fully in your body, you acknowledge it, but you don't make a story about it. You don't identify with it. It moves through you like weather through the sky. You can participate in the world without being controlled by it. You go to work, you have relationships, you deal with challenges, but there's an inner stillness that nothing can touch. The storm rages around you, you remain calm. The power you gain is extraordinary. You develop immunity to fear-based programming. You see it, you understand what it's trying to do, but you don't absorb it. You become free from the opinion of others because you know who you are, beyond any external identity. You access intuition and inner guidance because you've cleared enough mental noise to hear your divine spark speaking, and reality starts responding differently to you. Synchronicities multiply, opportunities appear, things you need show up exactly when you need them. You're still in the matrix, but you're starting to bend the rules. Here's how it feels: profound peace regardless of external circumstances. You can be in chaos without becoming chaotic. You understand that suffering is optional. Pain happens, the body hurts, losses occur, but the suffering we add on top through our stories about the pain, that's a choice. There's a deep trust in life itself, not blind optimism. You see darkness clearly, but trust that everything is unfolding exactly as it needs to, including the difficult parts. Why can't Archons touch you anymore? Because their system requires your unconscious participation. They need you to identify with the character, to believe the story, to react to the stimuli. At level 5, you've broken that identification. You're like a virus that has become immune to the host. You're still inside the matrix, but it can't control you anymore. The system will test you repeatedly to confirm you've actually stabilized here. Major challenges will arise: deaths, betrayals, financial collapse, health crises, specifically designed to see if you'll react unconsciously. But you'll notice something remarkable. You respond differently now. Not suppressing emotions, not pretending everything's fine, but responding from centered awareness instead of unconscious reactivity. People around you may escalate their drama to get a reaction from you, to pull you back into their frequency. You remain centered. This is proof you've graduated from the feeding ground. Level 5 is where most advanced spiritual practitioners stabilize, and it's a massive accomplishment. You've essentially freed yourself from the archonic prison. You're sovereign. You're awake in the dream, but there are 2 more levels. And these are where you don't just escape the matrix, you start operating it from the inside. These are the levels the ancient mystery schools spent decades training initiates to reach. These are where human consciousness touches the source of reality itself. Let me take you beyond the veil, into territory most teachers won't discuss publicly. We're entering sacred territory now, territory that threatens all forms of external authority, because it reveals a truth that can't be controlled. You are not meant to be saved by anyone or anything outside yourself. You are meant to remember that you are the divine itself, experiencing limitation temporarily, and you always have been. Let's go where the Archons absolutely don't want you to go. Level 6, Unity Consciousness, the dissolution of separation. At level 5, you witnessed your individual life without attachment. At level 6, the witness itself expands to include everything. The boundaries dissolve. This isn't a belief or philosophy. It's a direct, unmistakable experience. The sense of being a separate self, isolated inside your skin, looking out at an external world. It reveals itself as the ultimate illusion. You directly experience what mystics have taught forever. There is only one consciousness experiencing itself through infinite perspectives. You don't just understand this intellectually, you FEE. You can feel what others feel, not through empathy, but through direct knowing, because there's no actual separation between you and them. The person you're talking to is literally you in another form, having a different experience. When someone attacks you, you understand they're attacking themselves. When someone is suffering, you feel it as your own suffering because it is. The boundaries that seemed so solid, my body stops here, yours starts there. They become permeable, transparent, ultimately illusory. Competition becomes impossible. How can you compete with yourself? Harming another is revealed as literally harming yourself. This isn't morality imposed from outside, it's just obvious fact. Here's the archonic problem. Their entire control system is built on separation. Us versus them. Good versus evil. You versus the world. Winner versus loser. Every control mechanism requires division. At level 6, you've transcended the fundamental code of the matrix. The program can't run anymore because you've deleted the core file, separation, XE. You cannot be manipulated through fear because you understand there's nothing separate from you to fear. You cannot be controlled through division because you see through the illusion. Every attempt to separate you from source consciousness is seen for what it is, impossible from the start. The power that emerges at this level, reality becomes malleable. You understand directly what quantum physics has discovered. Consciousness creates physical reality, not the other way around. The observer affects the observed. Matter is condensed consciousness, and consciousness is what you are. You stop trying to manifest things because you realize you're not manifesting anything. You're revealing what already exists in the infinite field of possibility. Reality is not objective and fixed. It's a collaborative dream, and you're one of the dreamers. This is often called Christ consciousness or Buddha consciousness, not as religious concepts but as states of awareness. Jesus said, "I and the Father are one." Not, "I worship the Father," or "I serve the Father." I and the Father are one, same consciousness. Buddha said, "Look within, thou art the Buddha." Same message. This isn't blasphemy. It's the direct teaching they gave before institutions corrupted the message and turned it into worship of external authority. Notice how every one of these teachers was